Hey woodworkers. So the other way of cutting a tenon on the table saw is to use a single blade, and with that I have set up here on the saw, obviously, instead of using the cross-cutting sled, nope, instead of using the miter gauge, I'm using a cross-cutting sled. And anyway, so this is where we're at here. First things first, I'll need to raise up the height of the blade to just below where I think my line is. And I always do this rocking thing to make sure that the peak of that blade is not going to go past my line. Forgive me if I mentioned this before, but if I set the height of the blade exactly to my line now, the second I turn it on, that blade seems to cut a little bit past that line. So I know my joint's going to be too small. So anyway, I always want to start low, and then by raising that blade up, always make the thickness for my tenon that I'm after. Okay, so cross-cutting sled here. I don't have a stop set up here, much like when I use the fence. So what I'm going to do is set up a stop here, and I will bring, I'll bring the blade just to my shoulder line. So since my stop is on the left, it's now going to be the right hand side of the blade that I need to engage. And that looks pretty good. Accurate layout is so critical on all of this stuff. This stop could be left or right, it really doesn't matter, whatever your preference is, but for optics for this video, I thought it'd be helpful so you can see from your view. So, all right. So at this point, I'm ready to do a small cut here on the very end, flip this thing around, do the other face, and then test the fit. So let me throw my hearing protection and start with that. Unfortunately done away with my line, which hopefully does not mean that I've cut this too small. No, I still have plenty of material there. Alright, good. So still just a little bit thick, so at this point raising this blade up just a touch. Last reminder here, when I rotate that adjustment wheel to the right, that means I'm raising the blade. If I turn it to the left, that means I'm lowering. And I always want to raise this blade up until I get where it's going to be. The last thing about adjustment of the height of this blade is that whatever adjustment I make on height adjustment, it's going to be double the amount of thickness I'm taking off, because I'm taking off one pass of this position, flipping it around, that same amount of thickness removed on the second face. So small incremental changes are always superior. So, okay. Let me do this cut, see how it fits. That looks awfully close. Alright. One more small adjustment. Hopefully I'm off to the races. Okay, so I took off a little bit more of the length just to see how well this is fitting, and I'm only going to be able to fit the corner in, but that seems like it's holding fairly well. So let's go with this. I'll do the full length and see how this fits. still just a little tight. Okay. So, small note here. I think you could see that there are some uneven ridges here. The type of blade that I have is a flat tooth grind. So the very tip of these things creates a perpendicular cut to the surface of the blade. So flat tooth here. I'm going to do a trick which will alleviate these ridges. But even if you don't have a flat tooth grind, if you've got an alternating tooth blade, any of the blade types, this little trick should help to clear up a nice little flat cheek. And it will also fine-tune the thickness overall so that we should get this thing dialed in. All right, turning this thing on, sliding laterally. Quite sure if you could make this out, but any of those ridges that once were there are now totally removed, and so we should have a nice reference face. We're still just a little bit thicker than I want. Why are you fighting? Yeah, okay. So I'll do that same trick on the other face. Hopefully this one fits. Yeah, it's a little tight, but that works. I always like to check both of these corners. Yeah, that's good contact. All right, cool. So the next thing I need to do is, oops, here we are. So I need to translate the top and the bottom of these cheeks and get those cleared out. So, because I've set up the stop here, that stop doesn't change. The only thing I need to do is reposition the height of this blade. And it looks pretty close. Yeah. All right. Let's see how this one works. Same rules apply. I'm going to trim off just the very end on both of these edges, and then I'll do a test fit. Nope, not quite enough. So that looks pretty good. It fits well. So I want to show you the benefit of doing a single blade here for taking time or making time on this cut. So I showed you how to do this lateral sliding over the top of the blade. So if I wanted to remove more material here, I'm going to be able to hog out most of these cheeks, top and bottom, doing the same technique. I just need to make sure that the board is not engaged here in the peak of this rotation. So I'm going to start with where the blade is much lower on the sled. and then I'll be able to run this all the way across, engaging my stop, push it forward just a little bit, slide it laterally, and so on and so forth till it's done. I'll do that on both of these, and you'll notice this saves a bunch of time. So hopefully you see the benefits of that technique. Yeah, I'm gonna drive this one home, but voila, that is one way of doing this. And we've got a very strong joint, not going to come apart, and a little setup here goes a long way. Really easy to do, just take some practice. All right, hopefully that helps. Enjoy your woodworking.